Everything about the Gavin Christopher Newsom is an American politician and businessman serving since 2019 as the 40th governor of California. His life and everything about him. Part 4. Under pressure, Newsom delegated more decision-making on reopening to the local level. That same month, he announced a plan for registered voters to have the option to vote by mail in the November election. California was the first state in the country to commit to sending mail-in ballots to all registered voters for the November general election. As the state opened up, the Los Angeles Times found that new coronavirus hospitalizations in California began accelerating around June 15th at a rate not seen since early April, immediately after the virus began rapidly spreading in the state. On June 18th, Newsom made face coverings mandatory for all Californians in an effort to reduce COVID-19's spread. Enforcement would be up to business owners, as local law enforcement agencies view non-compliance as a minor infraction. By the end of June, he had ordered 7 counties to close bars and night spots, and recommended 8 other counties take action on their own to close those businesses due to a surge of coronavirus cases in some parts of the state. In a regular press conference on July 13th, as he was ordering the reinstatement of the shutdown of bars and indoor dining and restaurants, he said, "We're seeing an increase in the spread of the virus, so that's why it's incumbent upon all of us to recognize soberly that COVID-19 is not going away anytime soon until there is a vaccine or an effective therapy." Newsom oversaw a sluggish initial rollout of vaccines. California had one of the lowest vaccination rates in the country by January 2021 and had only used about 30% of the vaccines it had at its disposal, a far lower rate than other states, by January 20th. Newsom had an approval rating of 64% in September 2020, but a February 2021 UC Berkeley Institute of Governmental Studies poll found that his approval rate was down to 46%, with 48% disapproval, the highest of his tenure. The Los Angeles Times attributed this decline to public opinion of his management of the pandemic. The vaccination rate began increasing in January, with over half the population fully vaccinated as of September 2021, the percentage ranking number 16 out of the 50 states. Although the Newsom administration enacted some of the country's most stringent pandemic restrictions in 2020, California had the 29th highest death rate of all 50 states by May 2021. Monica Gandhi, a professor of medicine at UCSF, said that California's restrictive approach did not lead to better health outcomes, and criticized California's delay in implementing new CDC recommendations absolving the fully vaccinated from most indoor mask requirements, while saying the decision lacked scientific rationale and could cause collateral damage. In January 2021, the Los Angeles Times reported that Newsom's administration had mismanaged $11.4 billion by dispersing unemployment benefits to ineligible claimants, especially those paid. At the same time, legitimate claimants faced lengthy delays in receiving benefits. The state's unemployment system had been overseen by California Labor Secretary Julie Su, a Newsom appointee, whom President Joe Biden later appointed as Deputy Secretary of Labor in February 2021. Political opponents attributed the crisis to the Newsom administration's failure to heed multiple warnings by federal officials of the potential for fraud, while Newsom's administration said the Trump administration's failure to provide appropriate guidance for the new federally funded program contributed to the fraud. Experts said much of the fraud appeared to originate from international criminal gangs in 20 countries. A report by California State Auditor Elaine Howell said $810 million was disbursed to claimants who had fraudulently filed on behalf of inmates in the state's prison system. According to the Sacramento Bee, by the summer of 2021, California owed $23 billion to the federal government for unemployment benefits paid out during the pandemic, which was 43% of all unemployment debt, owed by 13 states at the time to the federal government. Most of this debt was unrelated to the federally funded pandemic unemployment programs that had experienced most of the fraud, and instead was due to long-standing underfunding and California's high rate of unemployment during the pandemic. Due to a mass die-off of trees throughout California that could increase the risk of wildfires, Newsom declared a state of emergency on March 22, 2020, in preparation for the 2020 wildfire season. After declaring a state of emergency on August 18th, he reported that the state was battling 367 known fires, many sparked by intense thunderstorms on August 16 to 17. His request for assistance via issuance of a federal disaster declaration in the wake of 6 major wildfires was first rejected by the Trump administration but accepted after Trump spoke to Newsom. On June 23, 2021, The NPR station Cap Radio reported that Newsom and CAL FIRE had falsely claimed in January 2020 that 90,000 acres, 36,000 hectares, of land at risk for wildfires had been treated with fuel breaks and prescribed burns. The actual treated area was 11,399 acres, 4,613 hectares, an overstatement of 690%. According to Cap Radio, the fuel breaks of the 35 priority projects Newsom had touted, which were meant to ensure the quick evacuation of residents while preventing traffic jams and a repeat of events in the 2018 fire that destroyed the town of Paradise, where at least 8 evacuees burned to death in their vehicles, were struggling to mitigate fire spread in almost every instance while failing to prevent evacuation traffic jams. The same day Cap Radio revealed the oversight, leaked emails showed that Newsom's hand-picked CAL FIRE chief had ordered the removal of the original statement. In another report in April 2022, Cap Radio found a program, hailed in 2020 by the Newsom administration, to fast-track environmental reviews on high-priority fire prevention projects, had failed to make progress. KXTV released a series of reports chronicling PG&E's liabilities after committing 91 felonies in the Santa Rosa and Paradise fires. Newsom was accused of accepting campaign donations from PG&E in order to change the CPUC's ruling on PG&E's safety license. The rating change allowed PG&E to avoid billions of dollars in extra fees. Newsom was also accused of setting up the Wildfire Insurance Fund via AB 1054 using ratepayer fees so PG&E could avoid financial losses and pass the liability costs to ratepayers and taxpayers. In June 2025, protests broke out in Los Angeles after a series of federal immigration raids. As demonstrations continued, President Trump issued a memorandum federalizing up to 4,000 California National Guard troops and deploying U.S. Marines to assist with the response. Newsom objected, calling it an unconstitutional overreach of federal authority. On June 9th, the state of California, led by Newsom, filed a federal lawsuit, Newsom versus Trump, challenging the legality of the troop deployment. The complaint argued that the order exceeded the president's statutory powers under 10 U.S.C. Section 252 and violated the 10th Amendment and the Posse Comitatus Act. Upon taking office in 2019, Newsom succeeded Brown as co-chair of the United States Climate Alliance. In September 2019, Newsom vetoed SB 1, which would have preserved environmental protections at the state level that were set to roll back nationally under the Trump administration's environmental policy. In February 2020, the Newsom administration sued federal agencies over the rollbacks to protect imperiled fish in the Sacramento-San Joaquin River Delta in 2019. Newsom attended the 2019 UN Climate Action Summit, where he spoke of California as a climate leader due to the actions of governors before him. In August 2020, he addressed the 2020 Democratic National Convention. His speech mentioned climate change and the wildfires prevalent in California at the time. On September 23, 2020, Newsom signed an executive order to phase out sales of gasoline-powered vehicles and require all new passenger vehicles sold in the state to be zero-emission by 2035. Bills he signed in September with an environmental focus included a commission to study lithium extraction around the Salton Sea. During his 2018 campaign, Newsom pledged to tighten state oversight of fracking and oil extraction. Early in his governorship, his administration approved new oil and gas leases on public lands at about twice the rate of the prior year. When asked about this development, Newsom said he was unaware of the rate of approvals, and he later fired the head of the Division of Oil, Gas, and Geothermal Resources. In November 2019, he imposed a moratorium on approval of new hydraulic fracturing and steam-injected oil drilling in the state until the permits for those projects could be reviewed by an independent panel of scientists. State agencies resumed issuing new hydraulic fracturing permits in April 2020. In 2021, the Center for Biological Diversity sued the Newsom administration over the continued sale of oil and gas leases, and Consumer Watchdog called for the end of their sale. In April 2021, Newsom committed to ending the sale of gas leases by 2024 and ending oil extraction by 2045. In October 2021, he proposed a 3,200-foot, 980 meters, buffer between new fossil fuel extraction sites and densely populated areas. In 2022, gas prices in California exceeded $6 per gallon. Newsom attributed this to corporate greed and price gouging by oil companies. He proposed a windfall profits tax and penalty for oil companies in September 2022. On March 28, 2023, Newsom signed a law that authorizes the California Energy Commission to set a profit threshold above which companies would be assessed a financial penalty, requires petroleum companies to report additional profit data to state regulators, and creates a new oversight division of the California Energy Commission to investigate price gouging in the gasoline industry. In 2019, Newsom signed a package of legislation aimed at curtailing animal cruelty and protecting animal welfare. In September 2019, he signed the Wildlife Protection Act, which prohibited commercial and recreational fur trapping. In October 2019, he signed legislation prohibiting the manufacture and sale of new fur products in California, as well as legislation banning bobcat hunting, ending the use of most animals in circuses, and strengthening Proposition 6's prohibition on horse meat and horse slaughter. In September 2022, Newsom signed legislation that banned animal testing of pesticides and other chemical substances on dogs and cats. California's fur sales ban became effective in 2023, making California the first state to ban new fur sales. In September 2024, Newsom signed legislation supported by animal rights and environmental activists prohibiting the commercial farming of octopuses in California. The law states that octopuses are highly intelligent, curious, problem-solving animals that are capable of feeling pain. California was the second state to ban octopus farming after Washington enacted a ban in March 2024. In July 2025, the Department of Justice named the state of California, Newsom, and other California public officials in a lawsuit targeting the state's regulations against intensive battery cage eggs, including Proposition 2 and Proposition 12. Newsom's office responded that the Trump administration enjoys blaming California for literally everything. I stop at this point today. Until next time, stay curious, stay informed, and keep exploring the world's incredible stories. Soon we will publish Part 5. Thank you for watching.